But the last thing we're going to talk about on this podcast, Mark, we're going to talk about the other two NFC teams that we haven't touched yet.
Mm-hmm.
Cardinals, Panthers. If you had to pick one to say they have the best chance to win the Super Bowl, or let's just say win the NFC.
All right.
They have the best chance to win the NFC, go to the Super Bowl. Who are you picking? Carolina, Arizona.
Those two questions for me are the same. Who has the best chance to win the Super Bowl and who has the best chance to win the NFC? The answer is the Carolina Panthers. Without a doubt. They're the best team in the NFL. Having the Honey Badger get hurt, that's not a good thing for the Cardinals. They proved that, hey, they're still doing all right.
Yeah, Bethel did fine.
He did it A-okay. No, nothing wrong there.
Shut down Eddie Lacy.
Like we've talked about on the podcast, losing a game was not a bad thing for the Carolina Panthers. They've tasted a loss. They've had the blood in their mouth. They don't want that feeling again. They're going to go into the playoffs angry, hungry, maybe a little hurt with that chip on their shoulder saying, we are not going to lose another game.
Now, here's the thing, and I take this from Mike and Mike. It was Mike Golick and someone else who were talking about this, and it was one of those things where Mike Golick was on the side of he doesn't believe that the loss was as good for the Panthers as everyone thinks, because when you look at it, it's like, it's a loss. Don't try to tell me you're happy with a loss.
Oh, of course
it's a
not happy.
loss.
But it's a learning experience. This team has not experienced a loss.
The way I see it is much like you said. Now the Panthers can go into the playoffs and say, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We have flaws. If they went in undefeated, they could get I'm not saying they would, but they could get a level head and say, you know what, we're the best. We're perfect.
Well, they'll get
nothing's
cocky.
wrong with us.
They won't have a level head in that case. Yeah, now their heads are a little bit more level.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Now it does remind me of course, when the Green Bay Packers were 15-1 not too long ago, and what did they do? Almost immediately get knocked out of the playoffs. I'm a little nervous about that for Carolina.
Didn't they run into the buzzsaw, which was Pete Carroll and the Seahawks, though?
Yeah, they always run into Pete Carroll and the Seahawks, and they always get beat. It does make me a little bit nervous for the Carolina Panthers. Who are they going to play? Probably, maybe it's going to be Minnesota.
Seahawks.
Maybe it'll be the Seahawks.
Well, if Minnesota wins the North, it won't be Minnesota because I don't think Green Bay loses to the Redskins.
Yeah, but let's be real.
So
here.
it's either going to be...
Are the Vikings going to beat Green Bay? Probably not. So they're probably not going to win the division.
Well, then it depends. Well, if Arizona wins, then it would be the Seahawks would be the 6th seed. So they're probably going to play the Seahawks. Let's be honest.
They can play the Seahawks, and they can play the Seahawks well. They could. Seahawks, it's tough for anybody to beat the Seahawks. And any playoff game is tough, for sure. While we're talking about the Seahawks, remember when who was it they beat? They beat the Saints. And they beat them
That was the
on
7-9
mode.
Yeah,
that was when
7-9
mode
year.
became a real thing.
That was a great year. I mean, this is me pulling back do you mind if I tell a personal story about that game?
I will allow it.
Okay. This is when we were in college, and I was a DJ at college radio station, WXAV 88.3 FM in Chicago. We did a sports show, much like this, but it was live radio, not a podcast. And one of my co-hosts said, if the Seahawks win, first it was if they make the playoffs, he shaved his head. Then he said, if they beat the Saints, I'll shave my eyebrows. Shaved his eyebrows.
Yeah, he had no hair.
He had no hair. He had bald head, chrome dome, no eyebrows.
So with that being said, yeah, I mean, the Carolina Panthers, I think, should be a little bit nervous, though, because it just reminds me of that, the situation of we are on top of the world, we get knocked out immediately. Because it is hard to be that team that just barely loses any games or doesn't lose any games and then goes to the Super Bowl and wins the Super Bowl, too. It's a hard thing to do. So, I don't know. I think this game against the Buccaneers is very important for the Carolina Panthers to reestablish that momentum. You can't lose 2 games and skid into the playoffs. That's bad. That's a bad
you can't
sign.
lose home field advantage to the Cardinals either.
Yeah.
And that is the team that I would pick out of the two, the Cardinals, because even though they have 2 losses, all year they've been consistently good. That defense doesn't... It's kind of like the Honey Badger. Honey Badger doesn't give a shit. This defense doesn't give a shit whether he's injured or not. They're going to come in. They're going to play their game. And to me, the reason why I have so much confidence in them Carson Palmer, baby.
He's been healthy.
He is having the Kurt Warner-like season that Kurt Warner had for the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. That season of like, you know what? Kurt's going to retire. He wants to go out on top. Now, is Carson going to retire? Probably not. But you know it would be a great Super Bowl? Cardinals defeat the Bengals.
That'd
Carson
be
Palmer defeats his old team that he had to retire to get out of.
Yeah. If
Then
only,
have to go to Oakland to go to
I was going to say,
Arizona.
if only he could somehow also be Oakland in this mess, that would be fantastic.
That would be great.
It's not possible, but only if it could have happened. That would have been great.
Well, Arizona's going to they'll let him play for the Chiefs so that he can beat Oakland.
You
in
guys
week
can borrow
17.
a quarterback for this game.
We'll swap quarterbacks for a game. We'll take Alex
we'll
Smith.
take him back. He'll play both games. It'll be great. He won't be tired at all.
One's a noon game, one's a
you'll be fine.
3:25 game.
He'll be fine.
Yeah, Carson Palmer he's the key to this team. And you know what would be an even better story for this team? They get to the Super Bowl. Guess who comes back Super Bowl Sunday? CJ2K. And they have all their running backs back, and they win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that'll help. It's just interesting when
Larry Fitzgerald finally gets his Super Bowl ring.
It's interesting when you look at these teams because
this is our
they're
NFC
both
championship.
So good. It should be.
It's going to be. I feel like it's going to be. It's
Unless
either going to
somebody
be
surprises.
It's either going to be Cardinals, Panthers, or Seahawks, Cardinals. Those are the two in my mind.
I would agree with that.
Because the Seahawks, to me, have caught the rhythm at the right time again. It's the Pete Carroll rhythm.
I said it long ago.
You knew this was going to happen.
I said it long ago. This had to happen.
And by you, I don't mean the collective you. I mean Mark Weber.
Yeah, this was going to happen. They were a good team. The bad start, I guess that's just what the Seattle Seahawks like to do. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. This is going to be, I think the NFC, I've said it this whole time, is just the better conference. I don't think many people would disagree with me in this situation unless you're fans of the Broncos, the Patriots, etc. And this is where I see our Super Bowl champion coming from. I hope.
Could you imagine if Brock
Cam
the
Newton.
Cock beat Seattle in the Super Bowl? Hey, Peyton, guess what you couldn't do? Get out of town.
That'd be kind of fun.
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
That would be kind of fun.
But before we wrap this show up, I got one more question for you.
Sure.
The Colts need 9 things to happen this Sunday.
Okay.
In order to make the playoffs. Not going to read through them all. You can go and Google it if you really want to know. There's about 9 different things that need to happen, 8 on top of them winning. Do the Colts make the playoffs? Or give me a percentage that these 9 things may happen.
I will give you a wonderful percentage, all right? Now, first of all, let's mention that they got to beat the Titans. That's doable. There's one thing that could happen.
But the Jaguars also have to beat the Texans.
Yeah. Not a chance.
Not a chance. They're
0
also
is
like
my percent.
The Falcons have to win. The Cardinals have to lose. The Saints have to lose. There's a lot of things like Patriots, Bengals, and Broncos have to lose.
Josh Freeman just got signed by the Indianapolis Colts. This is how desperate this team is. That is how desperate they are.
I hope they don't make it only because, like I said, I want the Ricky Widmer kiss of death to just be extra sweet. It killed the Cowboys. The Cowboys were, I can't remember exactly who I had winning. I want to say I had the Colts winning.
You had the Colts, I'm pretty sure.
But I remember that NFC Championship where I said, first off, I said Cowboys are going to win in Green Bay to get the divisional, and then they were going to beat the Seahawks.
Yeah, nope.
To get to the Super Bowl, and the Colts were going to beat the Patriots. They were going to beat Peyton Manning, then beat Tom Brady, then win the Super Bowl.
Nope.
With Andrew Luck.
They can't beat Brock the Cock.
And I have to apologize to Brian Lutes because in our last question, I may have kiss of death his Cardinals again. So I'm sorry, Brian, if I did, but the Cardinals are just they're my better team than
Claw up, baby.
Than the Panthers.
Claw
But
up.
that's going to do it for the Onside Kick. I want to thank you guys for listening, no matter how you listened, either the entire podcast on SoundCloud or mostvaluablepodcast.com, or if you listened in our experimental where we broke it up on the YouTube channel. I want to thank you guys for checking out the podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Ricky Widmer. Mark is at the Mark Weber with 2 E's. Go make sure you check out mostvaluablepodcast.com where you get everything, videos, podcasts, everything goes up there. You can bookmark it, check it out every day. We're posting things as soon as it goes up. I want to thank you guys again for checking this out. But as always, actually, before I say as always, Tell us what you think down below with anything we talked about today. Now, as always, have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.